actually on that committee as well. And at a meeting at the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council that had public in there, they said that there was more fear about climate change and its impacts to Florida in general, and this area specifically, due to a lack of understanding and information that they can trust. I thought that was an interesting message from the public. They believe it's happening. They know it's happening. Maybe they have, they live on the beach, and so they see tides coming up through their storm drains. When I've lived there for 20 years, and that's never happened before, but it's happening now. So they see change, and they want to understand it, and that's, so to that point, science does need to be out in the forefront more. We need to convey it in a way that the average citizen can understand without fear and make it applicable to their life.
Does science become politicized?
In some areas, I would say yes. Climate science happens to be one of them. And that's why, like, the approach that the regional group is trying to take is we're not debating cause and effect. We're talking specific data. This is the data we have, and we're recommending policy decisions.
Climate science for us costs us money, so my clients pay attention to it. Blue crab meat's gone out of sight because the fishing gear that they have for it is for shallower waters than they're at now. They're so hot, they're moving to deeper waters that are colder and to the poles. So they're not catching as much crab meat anymore, and crab meat prices have gone out of sight. So I'm able to explain to the chefs and the owners why you're spending more money. This is why you're spending more money. And by the way, the roe, that tiny little zool and phytoplankton, is in water that's really hot because we're carbon loading, and it's creating acidification of the water, and it's killing the roe of these small things. And they can hear that. Why are the oysters so expensive now? Why don't we have any? Well, we had a little thing called oil out there, in addition some chemicals sprayed out there, and some fresh water diverted to throw it all away, and so it disappears. And that affects these filter feeders. So now I don't have these oysters, and the price has gone way up. So we feel those climate changes immediately, and I feel like my background in science and able to kind of give hard facts to why they're paying more money for it, and why you're in the end dining a little bit more expensive. I feel like we get a direct correlation to it, and we'll end up having to pay too as a company with our carbon footprint eventually, and so we feel it now. We feel the impact already.
Al, can I make a comment on
Sure.
what Katie is saying? Because I recently had a couple of different conversations regarding, that, my career is, as a scientist, has not been a great one because I don't have my students in Harvard or Yale or Penn State or, in big name universities. I have them out there as educated public, as educated public. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't be any more proud of the two that are just sitting up there, or, and I've got some that are teaching, but they're not at Harvard or Yale. But, somehow we've got to convince even our, bosses of institutions that this is a credible endeavor. Because, every once in a while we hear, well, we shouldn't even be training master students. Well,
I wouldn't have been here then. And yet,
yeah, you guys are perfect examples of why, I think that I am, I've trained way more master students over the years than PhD students, and you all are just out there doing great things, and I think that that's a good thing to do.
That's great.
I think, so I'm Kristen, I'm a new faculty member here, I'm a baby. But, I think the theme here for you students is that communicating 5 minutes and in a 50-minute seminar. I need to be able to communicate to fellow scientists, to your parents, and to somebody in an elevator. And being able to practice each of those and taking every opportunity you have to practice each of those will really take you somewhere. And it gives you a skill set that's transferable across any choice of career.
And I think people are more open.
The importance of that.
I think people are more open, the general public's more open to hearing from you when you say, well, I'm a marine scientist. Because everybody, it's not as hardcore. Everybody likes, oh, really? And then when you tell them stuff, it's kind of cool. Like the information is kind of like a little puzzle. Everybody likes to try to think that they can figure things out. I think those sound bites and those information that you share, I think is like, oh, I never thought of it that way. You know?
My husband just calls me a geek.
There's that.
Well, I'm gonna go back to Pam.
I said my husband just calls me a geek.
Well, and that's another issue, that we're all or not all, but there are a lot of people who are attracted to science because we were born geeks. And we don't always have the best communication skills, especially the communication skills and teamwork skills, which makes going outside the box, outside and looking for training. One of my outstandingly successful master students from this century did exactly what Brad said, what Brad suggested. She went out and took, she got a GIS certificate to go along with her and used it in her thesis presentation, in her research and presentation. But she did a separate certificate while getting her master's, and she got a job like that. She followed her boyfriend, now husband, to the West Coast, had a job within a couple of weeks, and when he moved back here, the company opened an office in St. Pete for her. And yeah, I mean, that's how valuable she turned out to be to the company.
I would say one other skill set that I think is really good, and it's just dependent on what you want to do, but you've got a business owner here, and you've got another person Brad, who oversees people, and even if you aren't overseeing people, obviously Kelly, with all his grants, I mean, the people skills are just huge. And one thing I learned from, really after I left here, I only had 3 jobs, but I had an okay boss, a really, really bad one, and then a really great one. And it taught me what I did not want to be if I ever had. I couldn't imagine myself managing people anyway. It was just kind of freaky. But when I got put in the position, I knew I was not equipped for it. And so I went through the Certified Public Manager program through the state university system, which is it's kind of like it's a certificate program, but it's the soft skill leadership, and that kind of set a good foundation for me. Plus having a really great director who just, he knew that happy people do great work. And so he treated people that way versus another boss that had his finger in my face every 5 minutes because I wasn't doing something fast enough, well enough, whatever. Whatever was the excuse of the day for yelling at me. I knew I was just like, I cannot work under those conditions. And so if you ever see yourself in any way having to be involved either administratively through working with tons of people or actually managing and leading people, you really need to develop that skill set. And it's not easy. This stuff, the science stuff, far more easy than learning how to lead people. And I don't have to say manage people, that's task-driven. You have to be able to inspire people to want to go where you need them to go.
So is that innate, or is that something that we can teach here, or provide some? Do we develop like a Survivor's Island or a reality show where we divide up in teams and we go out someplace and for monkeys and solve problems? Or
Well, I was was pretty rough when I was at the Marine Lab, and I got bad reviews as far as dealing with people on a humane basis.
Told them what's full.
Yeah.
So were you the bad boss?
Well, no, because I listened,
The busy
and I didn't have to go get a certification. There were $100 one-day classes that would turn you around and say, that example's me. And they provide you with a book, and you can flip back to it. It doesn't have to be long-term. You could day-long seminars are
But
really
you
helpful.
don't learn leadership in a book.
No, but you can find examples of the way you should be behaving as opposed to how you are.
That's hard.
That's
Well,
hard.
it is hard, but if
Because
you
you so
see
want to
it
get on the
right
ground
here,
and do the work,
yeah,
and you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be able to pull up and get the people to do the work. That's hard.
yeah,
It
it
That's
is
hard.
hard. All I'm saying is, a couple of those worked really well for me.
I practice leadership work probably every day, but at least every week. Because otherwise, my tendency is, I'm an extreme introvert, and my tendency will be to lock myself behind my computer and work.
So where did you get your self-confidence? You're a confident person?
Yeah, I am a confident person, but it probably is through, I love critical thinking, I love systems thinking, and I ended up in a field where it's very highly valued, and I can just tell you, I have just worked with some amazing people. Over the last year and a half, he recently retired. I had the opportunity to work with a former county administrator for Volusia County. He came over and worked with the county under contract for about a year and a half, and he has challenged my thinking more in the year and a half than I have been challenged in 10 years. You've got to find these people. I mean, he was brought in to be the director of planning, and I ended up in a meeting with him, and I was just like, can I talk to you about, and the next thing you knew, we just established this mentor-mentee relationship, and I haven't let it go. He's in Volusia. He went back, his wife's works over there as an assistant city manager, and we still, once a week, get on the phone and just, talk about things that are either going on in either of our lives or just in, we're talking climate change. He's doing a lot of climate change work right now, working with cities on developing plans and stuff. So find those people, who they are. They make you, honestly, I've been built. I'm pieces and parts of people who have had wonderful opportunities, and I try to be like a sponge and learn as much as I can from every single person I come in contact with. A year ago, they put this group called Stormwater Operations under me. These guys operate gradles. Seriously, I don't even know what a gradle was. I now know what a gradle is, a long arm is, a mini excavator, a bobcat. I know all the pieces of equipment. I have been on all the pieces of equipment. I have learned more from these guys. By the way, not one of them has a college degree. And I have learned something from every single one of them about soil science, about soil management, about slopes, of how you should see what they can do with this piece of equipment. It's like art. I mean, so I think, once you get some basic foundational skills in the practice of leadership, you will find it everywhere you look. Because I find it everywhere I look. When I first had some of these operational groups come in with me, your leadership, and I'm like, no, everybody is leadership. It is everybody's role in the organization to be a leader. You are a senior operator of a gradle. You are the leader of your crew. You lead your team every day. I'm not there. So I think it would be good to either partner with another organization, or offer, some basic soft skills classes on it isn't just managing people, it's leadership, and leadership's different. It's fundamentally different, and it'll help you in so many ways. I've been in rooms with 300 angry citizens, and having to calm them down and realize that we have more in common than we have differences. And focus on those commonalities, and then you've got 2 or 3 differences over here, it seems so much less overwhelming. But I didn't learn that here. I learned that, again, 2 years worth of coursework, and then just from seeing those people, I'm just like, I want to be like Larry. Larry was my latest one. Haven't found my next one yet, but I will. That those people out there that you just see them and you're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Be willing to learn from anybody. That's
Yes.
When you see on your resume, USF College of Marine Science, to me, it immediately means that you've been exposed to an interdisciplinary curriculum. Is there something that you would look at a resume that when you saw in USF CMS, you also knew that I took some of these courses that you're mentioning, almost like a current set of electives that I had to pick at least 2, so therefore I probably had exposure to some geospatial work or accounting or writing or project management, so that I'm even more complete in the current world. That, as soon as you see those letters, you immediately know that I've at least had some additional exposure. And also, regarding geospatial knowledge and current technologies, what would you recommend in such a course that could be offered here as a potential elective?
Okay,
There's a big GIS program next
yeah,
door.
used to be John Althausen, I don't know who's over there now.
They specialize, I don't know what it is either, but they specialize in GIS. There are about 4 or 5 people over there that teach GIS and various forms. I've never had a GIS course, but in the geography department over in Tampa, they're big on GIS. So those courses are out there. They're available if you want to take them.
Right, but how would somebody know that I, as a student who went here, had to take at least 4 out of 10 electives that are really relevant in today's society, so immediately I stand above everybody else?
Well, I can answer that question, but I'll let them answer that question.
Well, I'd list them, the ones that you think were pertinent, and I read lots of resumes, and I look for the exact coursework, and if it's pertinent or not. Transcripts don't hurt either.
tailor your resume to the job you're applying for, please. Okay? I have gotten resumes where they, goal in there was something about, I don't know, I can't remember. It was something about being the best project manager at the specific business, and I was just like, well, you should have known. Well, guess what? You applied to Pinellas County, so I guess you were. So make sure you tailor it to the job, especially. I mean, most job descriptions are pretty specific, but GIS is incredibly important. We have enterprise GIS at the county. Everything we do is in GIS, down to managing our stormwater system. All of our infrastructure is managed in GIS, and so yeah, you have the scientific world of GIS, but it's also, we geolocate every single pipe, every single storm drain, every single sign out there, trees. We do tree inventories and map our urban forest, and so GIS is, it's ubiquitous, it's everywhere, and having that skill set is important. I don't look for an expert in it. I look for somebody who can use the system to manipulate data, to look for trends and things like that. But we also have extensive training at the county, so if I see that they have the foundation, then I know that we can offer some additional tools. That's the other nice thing, at least at the county, we have a tuition reimbursement program. So there are 3 people in my immediate work group right now that are working on their master's degrees. So we really support that.
Does that answer your question? I mean, how would people know? Well, you have to tell them. And I mean, how do people know if you're a graduate from Harvard, you're good? Well, it's because Harvard's got a great reputation. So, but we're probably not there yet as far as that. If you're a graduate from USF College of Marine Science, yeah, I think we're getting there, but it's taken a long time. Reputations take a generation to develop. And I went through, I was kind of the lead author on our seven-year report, which is now 4 years old now. And I tried to rank us. Okay, everybody else ranking, which just drives me nuts. But still, ranking, College of Marine Sciences are all different. They're College of Atmosphere and Marine Science, they're College of Space and Marine Science. And so the beans are all different. It's not counting the same beans. But nevertheless, we went from virtually, where's Kent? There you are. We were, in 1979, did anybody know who we were?
Almost nobody.
Almost nobody. We rank, okay, it's like football teams, though, we're ranking colleges, it's a sort of thing, it's very dicey, and depends on who you're talking to and what motivations are involved, or hidden agendas or whatever, but we rank about 10th in the United States. And as best I could tell from data from the National Research Center, and not Research Center, what they call themselves, anyway, it's an arm of NSF, but they count all kinds of data, about how many applications, how many grants, grants per dollars per faculty member, how many diversity issues, everything. So we hired a woman to drill down all that data, and we determined there were 35 programs that we compete with nationally, which is really small, actually. Not everybody has an oceanography program. It's damn expensive to have an oceanography program. Just look at the equipment we're trying to get around here, and the ships and everything else. So I'd argue it's probably a lot less expensive to have a psychology program than have an oceanography program. But just because of the nature of the equipment and the training and the travel and the hardware and the technology and the people to hire people to run the technology. So it's a small number, and it comes down to about 35. That's our competition, 35. We're about 10 as far as that 35 is concerned. Now, does anybody know we're 10? No, not that I know of. Are you Woods Hole? Are you Lamont? Are you Scripps? Everybody kind of knows those top three, but where would Texas A&M fit? Where would University of Rhode Island fit? Where do we fit? Where do VIMS fit? That sort of thing. So you sort of have to, it comes down to the individual, what you have. Maybe I'm missing your point.
To elaborate on that too, I think, pedigree, that makes a difference to some people, but, you have the opportunity to build your own reputation by, going to conferences and participating and talking to people and, taking the initiative to interact with those in your field that are not, in your own department, publishing good papers, well-written papers that people can read and understand and cite, and propagating yourself in those ways. That's a way to build your own reputation independently